big name quarterbacks going down with injuries. What does that mean for TJ Hockenson, Jordan Addison, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and more? We're going to dive into that as we go through each and every game from the Week 9 slate here on the ADP, the Average Dudes podcast. I am your Average Dude host, Matt Mormann, and that was kind of the big story, I think, of the weekend, were these quarterback injuries. All of a sudden, quarterback's not such a deep position anymore. For fantasy, you're probably finding yourself, unless you have one of the big stars, because the big guys have stayed healthy with your Mahomes, your Jalen Hurts, your Lamar, your Josh Allens. Those guys have stayed pretty healthy, a little banged up on a couple of them, but pretty healthy for those guys. Outside of those guys, you're probably not thrilled with what's going on at quarterback. Maybe you've lost your guy entirely, or at least for a few weeks, like a Justin Fields, and now we have a few guys now joining that group. Really, I feel like Tua is kind of the one guy you're really happy with if you didn't take one of these stars. So we'll mention that as we go through each and every game. This is the ADP. We're going to go through each game of the Week 9 slate. Let's get right on into it. And we're going to start things out with the Carolina Panthers getting their first win of the season, 15-13 over the Houston Texans. And I think, for this one, my two big fantasy football takeaways for this one are, number one, Texans, let's not get too far out in front of our skates on these weapons. These games are going to happen still for these guys. Nico Collins, very disappointing game. Tank Dell didn't get much at all going in this one. Dalton Schultz let you down if you used him as a streaming tight end in this one. And even Adam Thielen, kind of probably his worst game of the season, right? It's got to be up there. Only 8 catches and only 72 yards. Oh, yeah, he did have that stinker in week 1. But other than that, yeah, this is his worst point total of the season. A great season still for Adam Thielen. You still want to have him locked and loaded in your lineup each and every week. Other than that, though, the pass catcher's not doing much. Miles Sanders, let's talk about him. I think that's probably the biggest talking point of this game. He may have fallen completely off the table here. Only 2 carries, 0 yards in this one. It's not like Chuba Hubbard did anything good. Chuba had 15 carries for only 28 yards in this game. So it's very discouraging for Miles Sanders to see that not only did Chuba get the work, which there was a report from NFL Network, I believe Tom Pelissero, right before the game started that, hey, Chuba Hubbard's going to be the lead back today, but Chuba wasn't even good. He still got 15 carries, just 2 for Sanders. Keep an eye on that trade deadline. Maybe a team takes on Miles Sanders for cheap and could bring him some new life. On the running back side of Houston, still very frustrating to have Dameon Pierce. He's still not doing anything. CJ Stroud, disappointing game here. I still think he's a guy, though, that if you've suffered one of these QB injuries or if you got QB on a bye week, I think CJ Stroud remains a pivot option for you to use. I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. Not a whole lot for fantasy when a 15-13 game. Exciting game, though, and a good win for the Panthers in this one. Let's move on to a big-time blowout here. The Dallas Cowboys 43, LA Rams 20. I benched CeeDee Lamb in a league this weekend, guys. I know. That was dumb of me. I admit my mistakes. I'm loaded at wide receiver in that league, and I started Puka, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Stephon Diggs over CeeDee Lamb. Big-time mistake by me as he goes absolutely nuclear in this one. I am a hair bit concerned about Tony Pollard. Looking at his stats on this one, only a 65% snap share in this game for Pollard, only 12 carries and 53 yards, only 1 catch and 1 target. Coming off the bye, I would have liked to have seen more involvement for Tony Pollard. Now, they did have so much else clicking in this game that it's not like they really needed Pollard, but that's 4 straight games now of pretty disappointing rushing totals. He's managed to kind of get you by in a couple of those with receiving work. But I'm a bit nervous that, Tony Pollard may live more in that lower-end RB1, RB2 category. And really only in that low-end RB1 category because of some of the injuries that have been suffered at the position. If everyone was here, then he may not even be that high up. I don't love Pollard. And he's got a tough matchup coming up with Philly. But But then you got New York, Carolina, Washington, and Seattle defenses over the next handful of weeks there. So maybe he can get back on track with those. Dak Prescott, a great game here. And yeah, with all these quarterbacks going down with injuries, Dak moves into QB1 conversation pretty solidly now at this point. On the Rams side of things, the big story coming out of this one is the Matthew Stafford thumb injury. And along with that, and just a terrible day for the Rams, was a terrible day for Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. This is something I did not think was in the realm of possibilities on this season, was the possibility of both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp having games like these in the same game. I figured, hey, we've seen it out of both guys now to have a stinker. It'll happen for one, but when it does, the other one seems to still be really good for you. I've got one league where I have both, and I think that's kind of a common scenario. Think back to the preseason and Cooper Kupp's injury. I think it is kind of common that a lot of teams did then pivot and almost handcuff with Puka Nacua, and I've been okay playing both. I'm not okay with that now, especially if Stafford is going to be out for some time. That terrifies me. I think if there is no Stafford, Kupp becomes more of a lower end wide receiver 1. Puka becomes kind of a mid-range wide receiver 2. I think I would still prefer him over like Devonta Smith, who just had a really big game. I would probably prefer Chris Olave over Puka at this point. I'm just trying to think of guys who are kind of in that same range. Kind of that round 3 range back when we drafted in August. I think those are kind of guys that Puka is going to live with at this point. I think Cooper Kupp's a bit of a buy low, though. I think Cooper Kupp could be the guy. This is a little bit of a gut call, but I think he could be the guy who steps up with a quarterback injury and really gets fed a lot of targets. We often see backup quarterbacks funnel targets to one player. I could definitely see that being Cooper Kupp. On the running back side of things, Darrell Henderson was the lead back once again. Comes through enough for you to be okay with it. Royce Freeman, though, does get the touchdown, so he has a bit of a game there for you in a desperation situation. I think that'll do it for this one. Tyler Higbee still doing Tyler Higbee things. Minnesota 24 over the Green Bay Packers 10, and we have another one of our quarterback injuries. The biggest one because we know for sure, right? This is why this one's such a bummer, is we now already have confirmation. Kirk Cousins out for the season with a torn Achilles tendon. He was QB6 coming into this one. So Kirk Cousins has had a great year so far for fantasy owners. He's kind of dipped down these last few weeks ever since the Justin Jefferson injury, but still is definitely in the QB1 range. And I was already a bit concerned about these Vikings weapons. When we haven't had Jefferson, are they a bit matchup dependent? We've had big games out of Jordan Addison. We've had good games out of TJ Hockenson. Jaron Hall is who came in at quarterback. It sounds like Nick Mullins might end up being their guy. I think either way, it's not great for these guys. Also, there's a Justin Jefferson potentially still looming out in the distance. I think you're going to have a hard time finding a way to put Vikings in your lineups consistently outside of Hockenson because of tight end. I think this moves Addison into the flex conversation, which is a shame because he was having a really good rookie year. One of my preseason predictions was that Jordan Addison would be the best rookie wide receiver in the class, at least for year one. I still believe that basically would have been the case. And maybe with Nick Mullins, it will be. But, if Jefferson comes back, I think it's a lot harder to count Nick Mullins to support 2 wide receivers than it is for Kirk Cousins. In the backfield, this is an interesting split. Alexander Mattison still definitely had more carries. Cam Akers only had the 9 carries, 18 yards, and a touchdown. Mattison definitely played more snaps. Yeah, only 24% for Akers and 61% for Mattison. I think I'm willing to try to do a sneaky buy low on Alexander Mattison if someone thinks that the tide truly is turning to Cam Akers. Even though Akers had that touchdown, I think that means you can get Addison even cheaper. And I don't go crazy, right? Don't trade much of value. Just looking within this game, for example, I would gladly trade Romeo Doubs from Alexander Mattison. I don't think I would trade Christian Watson for him, just by looking at guys within the same game. But I think that it might still be Madison. Akers has not done anything to earn this job and take it away. It might be a split. It might just be a mess on a bad offense at this point. But if I'm desperate at running back, I think you can do worse than a guy who is probably going to get at least 14, 15, 16 carries a game in Alexander Madison. KJ Osborne, by the way, continues to be perfectly fine for you as kind of that waiver wire pickup wide receiver. His best game of the year right there with the 8 targets for 99 yards out of KJ. Hockenson is a guy who I would happily sell him and maybe play matchups at tight end and stream at tight end if I can get like a wide receiver 2 or an RB2, one that I feel pretty good about. I'm okay with trading Hockenson in those situations and kind of rotating through tight ends for the rest of the year because I think tight end is actually becoming a bit deeper here as we've kind of moved into the second half of the season. We've seen a few guys emerge. Tyler Higbee did have a good game again today, but Taysom Hill getting a real role in the offense recently. Trey McBride, we'll get to him later on. Dalton Kincaid had a big game on Thursday. Like, there are actually a handful of tight end options out there at this point that if any one of those guys are available, if they're not, I'm not trading Hockenson. But if you're telling me that I can trade Hockenson for an RB2 and I need that, and I can pick up Trey McBride, I would do that. On the Packers side of things here, Jordan Love not looking great, and like the numbers I feel like look a little bit better than he does at this point, which isn't saying a whole lot because 229 carries, or sorry, 229 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He reminds me a lot of Jameis Winston, and he doesn't have Mike Evans, like Jameis did. It's a lot of down the field stuff, and it's not always the greatest throw in the world. Neither running back getting a whole lot of work in this one. AJ Dillon actually led. Oh no, he didn't. Jaden Reed led the team in receiving. I was gonna say I thought AJ Dillon actually led the team in receiving, which would, oh boy, not be a good sign for the Packers. But Jaden Reed had a nice little game. That's always fun to see. Aaron Jones, I guess you're still hoping for the best out of it. Who do they play next week? Green Bay next week plays the Los Angeles Rams, who just got absolutely destroyed by Green Bay. So maybe there can be something next week for the Packers. But I think all these guys are definitely matchup dependent. On to the next one. New Orleans toppling the Colts 38-27. And the thing that stands out to me most in this one is Zach Moss, definitely. On the Colts side of things, Zach Moss is still not going away. He gets another touchdown. It was a nice-looking touchdown, too. Zach Moss is just playing really, really well. And honestly, they are 3-5. I was going to say, I don't feel like a contender. I mean, of course, I have to view things through the Ravens' glasses sometimes, right? But, like, if I'm the Ravens, don't you send, like, a 6th-round pick, a 5th-round pick, and try to get Zach Moss from the Colts? I think I would rather do that than send like a second for Derrick Henry or something like that. I think Moss is actually not a bad low end target for a team. He's playing really, really well, and it's still kind of keeping Jonathan Taylor a little bit capped in things. Taylor 12 carries, 95 yards, 1 catch, kind of an empty good game. Like, it is a good game. He got 95 yards rushing, but just kind of empty in doing it. No touchdown, only the 1 catch and 2 yards onto the air. Yeah, just we haven't gotten that explosion yet. We kind of need Zach Moss to go away in order to get full-fledged, full-power Jonathan Taylor. And I think Taylor's ready for it. I don't think it's still a building up thing anymore at this point. We've been a handful of games in now, and I think at this point it's more of just they want to keep Zach Moss on their football team and on the football field. In the passing game, Michael Pittman continues to just get a ton of targets. Only 40 yards, though. He does get in the end zone for you. Josh Downs continued to look like a really good waiver wire grab. Again, this week with his 7 catches and 72 yards in this one. Another one of these rookie wide receivers playing really, really well. On the Saints side of things, Derek Carr, a nice streamer. He's a guy I highlighted last week as a guy you can probably stream for a couple of weeks. Their matchup next week is against Chicago, and then they've got Minnesota after that. So a couple weeks in a row here where you could probably use Derek Carr as your quarterback if you're desperate, if you just lost a guy with all these injuries, or if they're on bye weeks. Alvin Kamara continues to get massive workload and produce with it. He is, I mean, at this point, I guess I was just wrong. I thought Kamara was going to kind of be a dud this year. He's been great. I was very nervous about Alvin Kamara after last season. I thought that it wasn't just a suspension to me; it was also his 2022 performance was a letdown. But no, he's been fantastic for you. Rashid Shaheed, he had a big play. These Rashid Shaheed games are going to happen from time to time. Played him in DFS. I'm happy about that, but that's all you're going to see out of him. I'm not worried about the other two receivers. They're going to be what they're going to be. Michael Thomas, just Mr. Consistency. Like, if you're watching on YouTube, I've got his sleeper profile pulled up right now. You can just see the chart of numbers, and it's like every game is just the exact same. It's kind of crazy. Chris Olave, a bit more up and down, and this one's a bit of a downer on him. Just 5 catches, 46 yards, but better days will always come around for Chris Olave. Taysom Hill, a starting tight end in fantasy football. Miami Dolphins 31, New England Patriots 17. Tua having a nice bounce back game. I feel like it's been a minute since we've had a game like this for Tua. 3 touchdowns through the air, 324 yards for our beautiful Golden Prince. He is wonderful. He is great. Tyreek Hill continues to just be incredible. He is on his way to 2,000. We all thought he was joking when he said he wanted 2,000 yards receiving. He was not, and he might actually do it. Like we're getting close enough now, and being like at the halfway point, and like he's already, I think, 1,000 yards or over it. I'm starting to be like, all right, Tyreek, you might actually get there, bud. Jalen Waddle, really nice to see this game out of him. Definitely his best game of the season. It's nice to see that he still has his other two, and that there's still enough for Jalen Waddle to get his from time to time. In the backfield, I'm getting worried about Raheem Mostert. Definitely getting worried about Raheem Mostert. Devin Achane should be on his way back in just a couple weeks. And Mostert, a 13 carry, 46 yards, and a touchdown. And if you look at Mostert's carries week to week, most games are living under like 15 carries. He's gone 10, 18, 13, 7, 10, 17, 9, 13. So whether Achane is there or not, it's not like Mostert was ever getting this big, massive workload. He was just being hyper efficient with it from time to time, really up until this point. And now if he's not being hyper efficient, he's just being good, he's not getting enough work to be good for fantasy purposes. He did get in the end zone, though, so you didn't feel the pain of it. Jeff Wilson, I'm going to give him one more week, I think. This is only, his third game back, and then they got a bye week after this. So, yeah, I'm willing to hold on to Jeff Wilson through that Vegas week, or going into that Vegas week. I want to see what happens there. If you're not playing Jeff Wilson this week, though, I think you're okay to drop him because he does have the bye after that. I'm okay with that. If you need to, if you're in an injury situation, if you're in a bye week situation, I don't have a problem with the idea of dropping Jeff Wilson, not former Ravens corner Josh Wilson, dropping Jeff Wilson. I'm okay with that. I would prefer not to, though. I'd prefer to hold him and see what happens with that Vegas game. On the New England side of things, unfortunately, another injury. Talk about Kendrick Bourne. He tore his ACL. He is out for the season. And he was really coming around as kind of a useful fantasy option in this offense. So now we look around, right? This is what happens with fantasy with injuries. Unfortunately, they happen and they create opportunity, though. Demario Douglas is the guy that I turn to and look at as an opportunity, not Juju Smith-Schuster. Demario Douglas, 5 catches on 7 targets, only 25 yards on those 5 catches. Juju only had 1 target. It was 1 catch. It was 3 yards. It was a touchdown. I'm more dismissive of a 3-yard touchdown catch. I want to look at the guy who got 7 targets. Demario Douglas, I think he's the guy I'll highlight in the waiver show, and he is probably one of the top wide receiver ads for the week. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody else. Rashid Shaheed, I think I'd rather do Douglas. Yeah, I think Douglas is probably my number one wide receiver to go out and add for this week. So that's fun. Running back continues to be a mess there in New England. All right, on to our next game. What is our next game? Oh, dear. Oh, no. The battle for New York. The Jets beating the Giants 13-10 in overtime as the Mets beat the Yankees in a high-scoring baseball game here, low-scoring football game. These games are going to happen for the Jets. Zach Wilson struggling in this one, but He actually ended up with 240 yards and a touchdown, actually. Didn't play that bad. I didn't watch a ton of this game, admittedly. The noon games, I think I was mostly watching, what was it? Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh Jacksonville was the one I was mainly watching. Yeah, because the Jets are giant. Like, it's a big eyesore. I didn't want to give myself on a Sunday afternoon. Brees Hall looks awesome though. I know 12 carries, 17 yards, but you saw it with the big play again on the reception. He's got that big play juice back. These plays can happen for him at any time. The rushing efficiency was bad, but it's there though. It's on its way. He's awesome. Saquon Barkley, 36 carries and 128 yards on it because they just did not throw the ball after Tyrod Taylor gets injured. And by the way, Darren Waller also injured in this one. That hamstring keeps on bothering Darren Waller. It's part of the reason why I wasn't a Darren Waller guy going into the season. I don't like slapping injury prone label on guys, but I did feel like Darren Waller was a guy where it was justified, and it's kind of playing out that way for the most part. Yeah, you can't. Saquon's the only giant that matters. On the Jets, it was nice to see Garrett Wilson. There were 7 catches and 100 yards in this one. It's Brees Hall. It's Garrett Wilson. It's Saquon Barkley. Let's get the heck out of New York. Jacksonville topples the Steelers 20-10. Trevor Lawrence, another kind of middling game. You know, if you drafted Trevor Lawrence thinking he had this great upside, I'm sorry to say it, I don't really think that that's there, but he's fine as a starting quarterback. And in this landscape with all these injuries and guys not living up to it, fine is probably good enough. Travis Etienne continues to be an RB1 in this league with his another massive performance in this one. Caught a deep touchdown too. That was very exciting to see because that's something that we thought he was going to do coming into the NFL, and it really hasn't happened much. So it was very exciting to see him get down the field for that touchdown reception. By the way, Tank Bigsby lost another fumble, so knock on wood, if Travis Etienne were ever not playing football for whatever reason, I'm not sure I would trust Tank Bigsby to step right in as a handcuff. Maybe Dearness Johnson could end up being that guy. Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, both pretty middling games here. Kirk with only 4 catches, 46 yards. Ridley with 6 for 83. Who do they play next week? Are they in a bye? They are. They're on a bye next week. And they have San Francisco. I would be okay, you know, if the Ridley owner in particular is like very desperate or just done with him. I don't mind sending out a trade offer for him going into his bye and putting him on my bench if I can afford it. Same with Kirk. I don't mind that. I don't love it though. Evan Ingram, another nice game for him. Mr. like Steady Eddie at the Steady Evie. Evan Ingram, Steady Evie. Can I go with that? I'm going with that. Steady Evie over here at the tight end position. Since week 2, 8 targets, 8 targets, 8 targets, 8 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets, and then 10 targets in this past one. Just he's a big part of this offense. He gets a lot of targets. It's probably part of why Calvin Ridley's been frustrating, is because Evan Ingram does get a lot of work in this offense. Pittsburgh side of things, another quarterback injury, Kenny Pickett going down at right about halftime, I think it was. It was just before the end of the first half. And it looked like he was going to come back in. And then he didn't. So it was Mitch Trubisky came in for the second half and managed to throw 2 interceptions in one half of football. Najee Harris continues to get more work than Jalen Warren, and it continues to baffle me. I don't understand why that's the case. I continue to hold Jalen Warren in hopes that at some point the Pittsburgh Steelers will see which one is actually good with the football in their hands. Deontay Johnson, nice to see him getting 14 targets in this one, 8 catches on 85 yards. He even left this game a little bit with an injury, came on back in and played pretty well. George Pickens, just 1 catch, but it was a 22-yard touchdown. He got away with it. I think with Trubisky, again, backup quarterbacks really tend to also like lock in on one guy. I have a feeling that Trubisky's guy is going to be Deontay. And I think Pickens is that style of wide receiver where 1 catch can equal 8 points, right? That's what happened this week. He can do that for you, but it's going to be a bit more of a roller coaster. You're not going to know when to play him, when not to play him. It's going to be a bit rough. I think George Pickens kind of becomes Gabe Davis in a bad offense. And that's not exciting. It's not something you want to use. The Tennessee Titans beating the Atlanta Falcons 28-3. In this one, I guess it was also a quarterback injury, from what I understand. I'm a bit hazy on this one. Let's see if there's an update. I don't see one, but Arthur Smith is not committed to a starting quarterback for next week. Desmond Ritter was taken out of the game at halftime. I believe there was concussion-like symptoms, is what it was, I believe. But that meant Taylor Heineke played quite a bit for Atlanta. Bijan got back on the horse this week with 11 carries, 62 yards, and finally scoring us a rushing touchdown. Nice seed there. Algiero still not going away. 8 carries for him as well. Drake London, kind of a bummer in this one. 5 catches on 7 targets. Not a great game there for Drake London. Same thing with Kyle Pitts. Kind of a bummer in this one for him as well. And Jonnu Smith finally let you down. After all these weeks of being, what a man for Jonnu Smith as a tight end streamer. Finally let you down with just 1 catch for 13 yards. Hey, Banana Man over here. Drink some coffee with that mayo in it, baby. Will Levis, 4 touchdown passes, just throwing bombs on these things, too. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, stat line here, 4 catches, 128 yards, and 3 touchdowns, because it felt like all they did was just throw bombs with this guy. That's fun. Okay, again, I'm a Ravens fan. These are going to be Ravens comparisons from time to time. He looks like what I always wanted Kyle Bowler to look like. I'm not giving him Joe Flacco. He's not elite. But, he looks like Kyle Bowler a little bit. I know that's going to scare off a lot of old people like me. But, this is what I always wanted Kyle Bowler to look like. And Kyle Bowler never even had his one game of looking like what Will Levis looked like on Sunday. So that's exciting. Derrick Henry, 22 carries in this one, 101 yards. It definitely sounds at this point when I'm recording this that he will not be traded tomorrow. Keep an eye on that tomorrow. Tajay Spears, definitely a great guy to keep on that bench. Stash him away just in case of a trade or a Derrick Henry injury. But it does sound like Derrick Henry will not be going anywhere. DeAndre Hopkins, I kind of think if I ran the Tennessee Titans, if I can get a second-round pick for DeAndre Hopkins, I'm doing it. If it's anything less than that, I'm just holding him. I'm hoping that he helps develop Will Levis a little bit, because I would really hate to have Levis have this exciting 4-touchdown game, and then you trade away the guy he threw 3 of them too, right? Like, that feels like such a way to stunt development of my rookie second-round pick quarterback that I believe, moved up for in the draft to go get. So, I don't know. If I'm the Titans, I think I'm rolling out these guys, and I'm not actually selling these guys. I'm holding on to them and hoping that they help Will Levis develop. Next game, and this one kind of a bit of a headache of a game here. The Philadelphia Eagles 38, Washington Football Commanders 31. And Sam Howell, streaming Sam, was back, baby. 38 points, 4 touchdowns. I don't know. We didn't recommend Sam as a streamer this week because how could you? I guess we should have. And maybe that's just what Sam is. Every week, someone in your league should have Sam Howell in their lineup. It's probably going to change each week on who it is, right? Hey, did this guy have Matthew Stafford? Okay, now you should be playing Sam Howell. Hey, in 2 weeks from now, is your quarterback on bye? Okay, now you're the one who should be starting Sam Howell. It might change each week, but someone in your league should probably be playing Sam Howell every single week. Jalen Hurts, awesome again, 4 touchdowns in this one. He did get kind of gimpy. I didn't watch a lot of this game either, but he did get a little gimpy, I saw. And only 4 carries and 6 yards. I believe DeAndre Swift's touchdown actually came on a tush push. I think I saw that where DeAndre Swift went under center and did it, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's what I saw. And so that's just something to monitor for sure, because if Jalen Hurts doesn't have his legs, I mean, he came through in this one, but that's just very concerning moving forward for sure. Anything? Oh, Devontae Smith. He was awesome. I never really lost hope in Devonta Smith. To me, he was always still a high-end wide receiver 2, and he came through in this one. Anybody? Oh, Jahan Dotson had a big game. He'll be a must-add player probably. Getting those 10 targets. I'd much rather have him than his teammate Jay Crowder, but I don't have a ton of hope on Jahan Dotson. But maybe, I mean, look. He was a first-round pick a couple years ago, and I wouldn't be shocked by a second-half breakout. We liked him a lot coming into this season. My worry was always, can Sam Howell really support two guys? And at least for this game, he supported three. Logan Thomas continues to be a tight end streaming option. Dallas Goedert, a bit of a stinker, but Philly kind of in a San Francisco-like way. It feels like every game someone's going to miss out, right? Like we talked about with San Francisco, how Kittle or Debo, someone's always going to miss out on the points in San Francisco. I feel like Philly is kind of in a similar boat. Hey, afternoon games now. Seattle with a 24-20 win over the Cleveland Browns. A bit of a mishmash at running back in this one for the Browns. Kareem Hunt, Pierre Strong, and Jerome Ford all getting in on the action. Jerome Ford was active after having an ankle problem during the week, but he was in there and he was playing, didn't play a lot. I feel pretty good about him moving forward, though. I think this is a bit of a, we didn't want to work him too hard. He didn't practice all week. Let's not overwork him. So I feel like I'm pretty good about that. Zach Charbonnet, I believe, let me confirm real quick, 59% of the snaps. Ken Walker, 41. Yes, Zach Charbonnet outplayed Kenneth Walker this week. And we all know how much I love Zach Charbonnet. If you were listening to the show back during the summer, I think Zach Charbonnet is an absolute priority pickup if you've got the space to put a backup running back on your roster this week. If he can emerge and take over for Ken Walker, that is a huge opportunity, a huge role that could be his for the taking. Geno Smith, kind of still a low-end QB1, high-end QB2 option, kind of in that Sam Howell kind of range, Derek Carr kind of range. Another guy where it's like someone in your league probably should be starting Geno Smith each and every week. At the wide receivers, bit of a stinker out of DK Metcalf, but he did get 14 targets in this one. Tyler Lockett with nine targets, 8 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown. JSN with the game-winning touchdown, but only 3 catches on 4 targets for 36 yards. If this is what JSN is moving forward, that would not shock me, as he's kind of the wide receiver 3 in this offense, but hopefully he's at least getting more involved and getting this level of usage. Amari Cooper did come through enough for you in this one, despite PJ Walker being his quarterback, and David Njoku is back, guys. That's exciting to see. Good to see David Njoku come through, 77 yards and a touchdown. The Ravens getting the win over the Arizona Cardinals, 31-24. Kind of a weird game, though, for the Ravens. That doesn't feel like anyone really did much of anything except for the Gus bus. Gus Edwards with 3 touchdowns in this one, 80 yards, 19 carries. If your league allows trading right this very second, maybe you try selling high on Gus Edwards, as the Ravens are rumored heavily in on every running back available on the market. I don't really think they're going to get a deal done, though, so maybe Gus could just be the guy moving forward. I do definitely think he is ahead of Justice Hill, and I'm not really moving my Ravens, though, from one week to the next. Like, I'm still totally in on Zay Flowers. He's still heavily involved in this offense, just all super short. It's a lot of, kind of cutesy plays with him. I think very Rondale Moore, but good is how I would describe Zay Flowers. Mark Andrews did get you a touchdown in this one. On the Arizona side of things, Josh Dobbs kind of coming through again for fantasy if you streamed him. Kyler Murray hopefully back in 2 weeks, it sounds like. Amari DiMercado, hey, super encouraging here. 20 carries in this game, 78 yards on it. So not the most efficient, but all that work. All the workload. Looks like it's Amari DiMercado's again, so he could be a guy you play in a desperation situation as an RB2. Hollywood Brown caught a touchdown in what is hopefully his final game with the Arizona Cardinals. And Trey McBride, breakout tight end over here, 10 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown for Trey McBride in this one. If he's not already scooped up, I will definitely be putting him on the waiver wire show. The Denver Broncos beat the Kansas City Chiefs 24-9 in a very surprising game here. And, I'm not worried about Mahomes. I'm not worried about Kelsey. I'm not worried about Pacheco. Like, if the owner of any of them is freaking out and panicking, sure, send a courtesy trade offer and try. The thing I am panicking about a little bit is the wide receivers on Kansas City. Rashee Rice was the leading receiver for Kansas City, which is what we want to see. We're hoping for more, though, out of him in this one. 4 catches and 56 yards. But yeah, I don't mean to be just completely dismissive, but I'm being completely dismissive of this game for the Chiefs. Better days are ahead as soon as Sunday. Russell Wilson with 3 touchdown passes, only 19 attempts. So kind of a classic Russ game in a way, right? Like low yardage, low attempts, but 3 touchdowns. That reminds me of kind of what Russell Wilson used to be a little bit. Javonte Williams, though, that's the guy talking about in this game. 27 carries, 85 yards, and a receiving touchdown in this game. Jaleel McLaughlin, pretty minimal playing time. Same with Samaje Perine. Fire up Javonte, man. He could be a league winner in the second half. I don't like to use that term lightly, but Javonte definitely could be that kind of guy. Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton both catching a touchdown in this one. I don't really care too much. They're both just flex options. And yeah, that'll do it for that game. The Cincinnati Bengals 31 over the San Francisco 49ers 17. And Joe Burrow's just back. I love it. Makes me super happy. We can just play our Bengals and not have to worry about it anymore. T. Higgins got a little bit unlucky compared to the rest of the guys. You know, when you have touchdowns going to Andre Iasovis, I was at the NFL draft. I heard his name get called, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm going to learn how to say that one. We were in line to get our picture taken at the little like mock draft booth, and that's when he was picked. But Tyler Boyd catching a touchdown also, so it's like two touchdowns going to the tertiary weapons and not T. Higgins. But Jamar Chase, he gets his 10 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Joe Mixon continues to volume his way to relevance, 87 yards and a touchdown. Joe Burrow is awesome. Brock Purdy, again, he lives in that same range as Geno. He lives in that same range as who did the other guy threw in there earlier? I don't even remember because I talk about every single player. So I don't remember who my other one was. Hopefully you do. Let me look at the teams. Trevor Lawrence? No, Trevor Lawrence is above Brock Purdy. Who was it? Was it Derek Carr? I think it was Derek Carr. Yeah, Derek Carr, Brock Purdy, Geno Smith. That sounds like a nice little family right there. We'll put him in that range as kind of low-end QB1, higher-end QB2 option. Christian McCaffrey, he's awesome. Beautiful. He is 1 game away from breaking the touchdown record for consecutive games with a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk, he's also awesome. There's nothing to learn there. George Kittle in a nice game. That's always good to see because Kittle just feels like he misses out. But this is what we said with San Fran. Debo's out right now. And anytime that someone's out, usually that means all the remaining guys get there. So Ayuk, Kittle, and McCaffrey can all go score points, and we can all be happy, except for the person who has Debo Samuel. They're not very happy right now. And let's talk about the final game, the Sunday night football game, as the Chicago Bears take the L to the Los Angeles Chargers 30-13. Justin Herbert, nice big game in this one. You love to see it. Same with Austin Eckler. I was getting a little bit worried about Eckler, and I still kind of am because I do look at those rushing numbers and say, yeah, that's still not great there. 15 carries for just 29 yards, but at least he had the passing game role in this one. He had 7 catches on 8 targets and a touchdown. As long as he's getting that, he'll be good. My worry is, though, if there are games where that goes away, it's going to really fluctuate his value. He doesn't have good rushing numbers to just kind of keep him afloat to where, like, if for whatever reason on the next game, the game plan doesn't include throwing the ball to Austin Eckler, then I don't know. You may end up with an RB2 performance. You know, he may be closer to RB20 or so if he doesn't have all those catches. So that's just a bit of my concern there with Austin Eckler. Keenan Allen's still great. Quentin Johnston really started to come alive in this one. He's, you know what? I think I said Demario Douglas earlier. Quentin Johnston, that would be my number 1 wide receiver pickup for the week. Hopefully you stuck around for the entire podcast so you could hear about Quentin Johnston over Demario Douglas, and you didn't leave a comment on YouTube down below too early because later on I corrected myself. That's why you watched the whole thing, ladies and gentlemen. On the Bears side of things, you know, Tyler Bagent at quarterback, it's hard to get a good read on what's going on here, but DJ Moore leading the team in targets. I continue to think DJ Moore is a useful wide receiver, even with the backup quarterback in there. Gets 4 catches on 6 targets, 55 yards in this game. It's kind of a floor game. It's not a great game, but if that is the floor, that's still a guy you can have in your lineup, as opposed to, I think some of these other teams we're going to see here with more and more of these backup quarterbacks, we're going to see a Jordan Addison fall off the table for some games, right? We're going to see maybe, we've seen it with the Rams guys this past week, right? Where their floor games are just totally useless. I still think because he is such a pure target dominator, DJ Moore's bad games are still not going to totally kill you. Cole Kmet with a really great game in this one, 10 catches, 79 yards. I wouldn't go crazy over it, though. And then among the running backs, Darrington Evans definitely played way more than I thought he was going to Sunday night, and he got a touchdown. I remember when he crossed that goal line, I thought to myself, like, well, there goes the one touchdown that this team's going to score, right? Like, I got Roschon in a league. I have Deontay Foreman in one league. I've got DJ Moore in like 4 leagues. And Darrington Evans just scored the one touchdown that this offense is going to score tonight. But hey, guys, that was the one podcast that we're going to do here tonight. That was each and every game from the Week 9 slate. Thank you for joining me. Hey, be sure to leave a comment down below on YouTube if you're watching it that way on what all you guys thought of the Week 9 slate. If you guys have any questions for next week, I'm going to have a waiver wire show. Go record that bright and early tomorrow morning so you guys know who to pick up to add to your team for next week so you can keep on rolling through this fantasy football season and keep on racking up those wins. So we will see you guys later on the week for that.